right. So I wanted to do my favorite area tonight, which is the area of halacha. The reason I haven't done it in this platform is whenever anybody hears the term halacha, Jewish law, they say boring, oppressive. I don't want to know from it. Let's see if we can change that a little bit. In the context of Yom Kippur, we'll go through a few areas of Jewish law. We'll push back and forth on them, get to know them a little bit better. They're all practical and useful over the next handful of days. And halacha is the segue to everything in Judaism. It truly is. I need to be learning halacha and executing halacha on an ongoing basis. So a lot of people avoid it. Halacha has been the area I've loved most throughout my life. And I've decided over the last handful of months that I want to teach it more and teach it in a way that I think people will enjoy. So you let me know. And if not, we'll switch it over. All right. Hatarat Nedarim. What is it? What is Hatarat Nedarim? What does it mean? What do we do? How do we do it? What is it? Tomorrow night, right? Kal Nidre. So the term lahatir, it's an important term to know. It's with a taf, not a tet. The term lahatir is a very interesting term. It means to uproot. So what are we doing? We're uprooting commitments that we made, right? Now, what is the basis? If someone made a commitment, and we're going to talk about how a commitment is established, but if someone made a commitment, what allows the person to uproot it? What would you say? What would allow someone, if someone made a commitment to X, he made a promise to do Y, what right would he have? What allowance would he have to negate it? What would you say?
If he realized he wasn't able to fulfill his promise or his vow.
Okay. So, but we need more than that, because anyone would make a promise or a commitment to do anything. And when it got difficult, they say, oh, I'm running to Hatara. So what's the basis of it? We need a halachic basis. So the halacha basis here is interesting and important. It is that had I known the consequences, had I understood the circumstances of this commitment before I made it, I wouldn't have made it. And therefore, I'm asking the court to uproot it. Again, had I known what I was getting in for, had I understood the obligation, then I never would have done it. So if the circumstances were clear to me, it wouldn't have been so. And because of the lack of a full understanding of the commitment, we can uproot the commitment. Got it? We need an assumption of some kind, because then nothing means anything anymore. Okay, I want to make a commitment out of this. I want to make a commitment to drop that. I want to walk away from this. Why not? Why not? So you need the assumption that had Reuven known all of the circumstances, how complicated it might be, how challenging it might be, where the results would go, he wouldn't have done it. And because he wouldn't have done it with a full knowing mind, now that he is of a full mind on it, we're going to go back to the outset, uproot it as if it never happened. Good? Beautiful. Okay, good. Now, what constitutes a neder? What constitutes a commitment or a promise that we're looking to uproot? What constitutes it? What would you say?
I would say saying it, but also, isn't it thinking it too?
It's not thinking it, but it's saying it. And what else is it? Hey, Murad, how are you? Hi, Rachel, how are you? Yeah. It's not thinking it, but what else is it? I could be mefaret, the neder. I could detail the neder. I could say it out loud. What else would establish a commitment to something? A commitment is established to something if I practice it 3 times. If I've practiced something 3 times, it becomes a part of me. It becomes part of my life. And should I choose to stop practicing it, now it has to be obviously something of import, something of value. If I choose to stop practicing it, I can't just back off, because once I did something, if you did it the first time, could have been a fluke. You did it the second time, you were still figuring it out. But by the third time, if someone did something, someone goes to the Bikkur Cholim office every Tuesday night for 3 weeks. They never said anything about going. They just decided in their minds they wanted to go, and they showed up 3 times. By the middle of the 3rd week or the beginning of the 4th week, they realized that it's just not practical. That's a neder. That has to be dealt with. So anything that was committed to, oh, I promised to do X, that's clear. Oh, I'm going to do X, that's just as clear. I'm going to donate X amount of dollars. I'm going to donate X amount of dollars. If the person didn't say without a neder, bli neder, then that's a commitment as well. Good? So we, how can we then, if it's about something specific, something we know about, how do we just go in front of a court of 3 people and just put this generalized disclaimer out there? How do we do that? In other words, if I know my issue, if I know that I went to the office of Bikkur Cholim for 3 weeks, if I know I made a pledge to pay $100, if I know that I made a commitment to take on this mitzvah, if I made a commitment to help somebody with something, if I did something like that, if I did anything like that, so now I'm already in an obligatory position. So you would say, well, if you know what the obligation is, deal with the obligation.
This is not it.
If you know what the obligation is, 1 second, I'm trying to.
I'm sorry.
If you know what the obligation is, deal with the obligation. Serene, what would you say? You're the only one unmuted at this point.
You're saying deal with the obligation and just do it? And just
And you can't do it. Let's say you can't do it. Let's say anybody who doesn't have noise in the background, feel free to unmute.
I'm thinking, why should you be punished if you're just not continuing a mitzvah?
And that's exactly the issue. That's exactly the issue. Law, then a person is punished for not continuing, and it doesn't even have to be a mitzvah. Every time you trip up, you made an obligation to do X. Every time you trip up on doing X, every stumbling is considered another failure, another fault.
You're better off not doing it because it's a mitzvah
100%.
aseh.
Good. Or doing it and say, bli neder. I'm not making any absolute commitments here. Bli neder, without a commitment, without a promise. So you know what?
Even if you do it 3 times, you could say that every time.
Say, you know what? No, you don't have to. You're gonna say, I'm going to go to the Bikkur Cholim office. At this point, I'm thinking of going every week or every 3rd week or whatever it is, but I'm doing all of this bli neder. So if I can't continue it, I don't have anything on my shoulders. The idea is that once a person makes a commitment to something, now it's as if there was another mitzvah that was placed on him. He brought the mitzvah on himself, but it's as if there's another mitzvah placed on him, and when he doesn't keep the mitzvah, it's as if he's violating it. It's very rigorous. It's very rigorous. And what's no less rigorous is the fact that a person can annul it. A person can remove himself from it. So step A is to understand the following. We have mitzvot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us to do. We have the mitzvot that the rabbis give us to do. Great. And then we have those things that in navigating our lives, we take on. I'm going to do such and such for a person. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to engage in that. I'm going to, whatever it might be. I'm going to do whatever I say. Once I take that on, again, we're assuming it's positive, it's constructive, right? Once I take it on, that becomes my obligation. And each day that passed that I had committed to that and didn't do it, it's another ding. It's another ding. So the alternative isn't, well, who wants to commit to anything? Who wants this headache? The alternative is when we make these commitments, qualify the commitment from the first word by saying, Bli neder, I am not taking on an absolute commitment. Now, we say it now, people are more sensitive to saying it when we go up to the Sefer Torah and we give a donation, we say Bli neder. So we don't say, I'm giving 501, and then afterwards say Bli neder without a promise. We say Bli neder, I'm going to give 501. Now, if the person knows the specific commitment that he or she made, then you have to go in front of the Beit Din for that specific commitment and ask for it to be uprooted. In other words, to use our example, someone went to the Bikor Chalim office 3 times, having made a commitment to go on an ongoing basis, and just decided to pass, to stop going. He or she recognizes that specific commitment. So if I recognize the specific commitment, I need to go to the Beit Din to deal with that specific commitment. Good? The only reason we do the Hatara is because I have a ton of commitments or a bunch of commitments that I don't remember what they are. And because I don't remember what they are, I go in front of the Beit Din and I ask them for a generic pass on whatever I may have taken on that I don't remember. So again, if I do remember, I can't deal with it in this context. I have to deal with it specifically on its own merit. Good? And it speaks to the power of practice and the power of speech. Practice in Judaism means something. If I practice something enough times, 3 or more, then that means that I've made a commitment to it on its own terms. If I speak something out, whether I said I promise or not, if I speak something out with a voice of commitment, it means that takes on a commitment and it stands with me no different than a mitzvah, which is a commitment that God or the rabbis gave me. This is a commitment that I gave me. Okay, so far? Now, where do we get this idea that we can uproot it? Because it's not universal. It's not universal. Not everybody feels that it's okay to come and uproot something. Generally speaking, if there weren't some circumstances that were unknown or unanticipated, I have no right to do it. If I knew going in that going to the Bikor Chalim office every Tuesday night would mean this, that, to my family, to my husband, to my friends, to my own personal time, if I had carefully considered it and I knew everything about it, I knew the circumstances clearly, then I have no right to uproot it. The assumption is, like we said before, and it's brought by Harambam, Maimonides, in the laws of Nedarim, in the laws of commitments, that if I didn't anticipate it all, then I have the right to get out. Okay? Now, what about a husband representing his wife? Can a husband represent his wife in front of this court? What would you say? What would you say?
Yes.
A husband actually can represent his wife because we call it chativa achat. They're like one bundle, the two together. So in this case, the husband can represent his wife, which technically means that if a woman can't make it the night of Kal Nidre, tomorrow night, the husband can do it. Our minhag in our community is for everyone to be there. And
the women represent the husband?
Can the woman represent the husband? Great question. I don't see why not. It's not talked about. It's not something I've seen, but I don't see why not. There's no reason not to. If we're going to accept that each person comes individually and what they have to say has value, and the man could represent the wife, I don't see any reason why the wife can't represent the husband. Right. I think.
What about like what about mother, child, and even if they're above, 13 and 12?
Great. So what the mother can certainly represent her child. The older young adult can ask his mother to be his shaliach, be my messenger. We have a concept of shaliach l'dvar mitzvah. If someone is going to do a mitzvah, he can appoint or she can appoint someone to do it on his or her behalf. So let's say someone is going to let's say someone is going to buy a pair of tefillin for someone. It's a mitzvah for him to buy that pair of tefillin for someone. He can ask someone else to do it on his behalf. Let's say someone wants to get engaged. The guy wants to propose to a lady. He can have someone do it on his behalf because we have the concept of shaliach b'dvar mitzvah. I can be a messenger. A person can be a messenger to get a mitzvah done for somebody else. Good. So in this case, the mitzvah is the hatara, to remove this stumbling block. And if someone appoints somebody of sound mind and maturity to do it, they can certainly do it. On the other hand, because this is not a hard and firm court, we have certain leniencies about this court that we convene to uproot these commitments. One of the leniencies is that the court can be in session at night. Generally speaking, a Jewish court cannot meet at night. We have the criteria that people are tired, things are less clear in their minds, so we prohibit a Jewish court from meeting at night. In this case, this Jewish court, to adjudicate and remove these issues, can meet at night. We also have a case, we also have the criteria that the people sitting in the court can't be related to each other or to any of the plaintiffs. In this case, because it's a much more lenient situation, it's not a hardcore court situation. Those sitting, the three men sitting, can be related to each other, and they could be related to anybody who's presenting. Okay, so far? Good. So, recap. You guys tell me, why do we do this? Why do we do this? Huh? Why are we doing it?
To cleanse?
Serene? Huh? Why?
To cleanse?
We're doing it because commitments are, because regulating myself into something becomes a commitment. Once I take on a commitment, that sits on my life like a halachic commitment. The same way I have a commitment to keep kosher. If I did something a certain number of times, I take on the commitment to do whatever that was. So I can't walk into Yom Kippur asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to deal with me, to help me deal with the things that I want to change and improve, when I'm going to walk out of Yom Kippur 10 minutes later or a day later, and I'm going to stumble in the same thing because it's still on my name and I haven't dealt with it. Are we clear on that or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Erwin, good to see you. Hi,
Hi,
Aaron.
Rick. How are you? Hi, everybody.
How are you? Aaron, nice to see you. Julia,
So,
good to-
Ricky, סלוש מרבות, נעימות וטובות.
Oh, thank you. Great to hear your voice. Julia, thank you for joining. Okay, so here we go. Headline, Erwin, we're going to do a very fast recap. Headline is, once I commit to do something, the commitment could be verbal or it could be just through habit. I've done something X amount of times. Should I choose to stop doing it? That's why we do the Hatarat Nedarim tomorrow night. Why do we do it? Because once, yeah, Rachel.
What kind of commitment? Like what constitutes a commitment?
You give me an example, I'll tell you.
I want to exercise more.
Okay.
I mean, like something in your day-to-day life, or it has to be something more
No, it
substantial?
doesn't have to be something related to Torah, it's something in your day-to-day life. I committed, so you're saying, I committed to go to exercise. Okay. I don't know that would be an issue because, well, I'll tell you, if lack of going to exercise means that you will be less healthy, then you might have an issue. If you make a commitment to exercise, or you make a commitment to stop eating X or eat less of Y, and that is bettering your health, so there was an implication to it. Now, if I made a commitment to play football every Tuesday and I wasn't, okay, it doesn't really mean anything. But if I
Right.
made a substantive commitment that'll have an impact on my life or the life of others, and I let that commitment go, it's no less than taking on a mitzvah and then ignoring it.
So like parenting, like something
Right,
in
That's
that
up-
realm would be considered?
100%. 100%. I took on an obligation to do X, Y, Z with my son or with my mother or whatever, that kind of thing. I did it for a bunch of times. By the way, I never even articulated it. I just did it. Like we said, Erwin, if we did it 3 times or more, I just did it. Yeah. So then it becomes part of who I am, part of my screenshot. That's who I look like before HaKadosh Baruch Hu and myself. And the only way to remove it is to take the position that had I known all that was involved, had I understood the time, the toll it takes on me, what it takes away from my whatever, I would not have taken it on. And that's the only premise to remove it.
So Ricky, just one question, because I jumped in late, but is the commitment to eradicate something that you want to do, that, like we discussed a month or so ago, that you're making tissue bad, like I did something that I don't want to do anymore, that's not good? Or are you saying I want to do something good, I want to put it on my scoreboard?
Whatever it was, anything I committed to,
No, but is it a bigger thing to eradicate? Say you were doing something that, let's say you ate in a non-kosher, or you did something that was against Torah,
right?
or
Is it
like,
bigger?
I don't know
No.
who said, Rachel said, I'm gonna go to the gym. So there's a
Great
difference
question.
if I ate
Beautiful.
lobster or I'm going to the gym.
Great question. So now you have a fabulous question. And we're going to talk about it in a few minutes and when we talk about something else.
Okay.
But now you have a great question. Now the question goes like this. It's called kimle de rabamine, right? Which means if a person violated 2 things, then which one do we hold the person accountable for? Does God or the court hold the person accountable for? And we say that the person is held accountable for the more severe thing.
Okay.
Person is held accountable for the more severe thing. So if somebody stole from someone, God forbid, and then killed the person, don't try the guy who did these things for the theft. You try him for the murder. And
Right.
by the way, it's the same thing in the American court, right? It's the primal issue that gets dealt with, right? The more strict issue, but that's not the case here. And we need to know that. It's also not the case in the area of halakha. We're going to talk about in a few minutes. The case here is if a person made a commitment not to eat taref, and he went out and he ate taref, then he has the issue of taref and he has the issue of his commitment. He has both.
Right. Okay.
Because they're in 2 different categories. They're in 2 different. So the person is held accountable for each. It's not the person is held accountable for.
Sorry.
Taref, I'm
Think
sorry,
taref.
unkosher. Taref is
Oh,
unkosher
okay.
food. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So if a person ate unkosher food, yeah, Serene,
No, but what if they're eating kosher their whole life, and then one time they decide to eat not kosher? Is that considered a commitment the whole
100%.
life? And then
1,000%, not
so
even
the
100.
first time someone does a lo ta'aseh, that's like, but they have to do hatarat nedarim on it.
100%,
Okay.
100%, 100%. They have to do hatarat and darim on it because they made a lifetime commitment. Let's say, for example, someone was wearing a kippah his whole life, right? Wearing a kippah his whole life. And then for whatever reason, he decides to take it off. Even if there was a reason of concern, even if there was a reason of safety. Let's say the
Right.
situation's changed, God forbid, and there's a concern issue, right? And he decides to take his kippah off. Okay, there's mitigating circumstances. So you'd say because of the mitigating circumstance, he can't wear it anymore. He can't wear it anymore. He shouldn't wear it anymore, whatever it might be. It could be that you should take it off, but you still have to deal with the cessation of the commitment. So it means that commitments are very, very serious, and the fact that this is the way that our rabbis look at them. Now, we're not even talking about if a person said, "I commit in God's name," which we don't do. We of course don't do. But if someone even committed in God's name to something, he can still come before the Beit Din, come before the Jewish court, and he could ask for them to remove it based on a lack of fully understanding all of the implications and consequences. So if a person knew that specific commitment, if he was clear on it, right? To your point, Serene, a person said, you know what, I've been eating kosher my whole life. He makes a decision, he didn't make a mistake. He makes a decision to go out and eat taref, right? Now he has that specific issue. He should go in front of 3 rabbis and be mefaret that point and detail that specific commitment and say, I was doing this my whole life. Now I changed to do that. Now, if it was by mistake, if it was the person lost himself in the moment, if it was something like that, we're not going to do this, right? Because the person is going right back to his old commitment. But if a person gave something up, there was a time Jamie and I were traveling. First time in my life since I'm 14, I took off my kippah because I was scared. For the first time, I was scared wearing it. Used to go to Harlem, to the South Bronx when we were building the Conway business. I was never scared. I had it on every day, never afraid. They're always afraid. Now, I was taking it off because there was sakana, there was danger. But if it didn't go back on when the danger was aside, then I have to deal with my breaking my commitment. Good? Any other thoughts, questions?
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But Ricky, you're saying that the person, if they don't know the implications and they're absolved. So like, are you sort of like rewarding the person for not being so knowledgeable? Like,
it's a great point because not everybody is comfortable with this. Exactly along your lines. They see it
right.
as a little expeditious, as a little bit of a leniency. But our rabbis stuck to it. Not everybody likes it. And there's a lot of back and forth on it. But at the end of the day, the rabbis go with it, not only in our community, in the Jewish community in general, because they say, people don't necessarily think things through completely. And we don't want to have people to have this baggage. We don't want them to have it in a practical sense, in the overall sense of who they are. And we don't want them carrying it emotionally. If someone can say, you know what, I did something for a certain period of time. It worked for me. Now I understand life differently. I want more. I want different. And I'm going to move away from it. But then they'll feel guilty forever and ever that they gave something up. Okay, I was going to the Bikuch Halim office every Tuesday night for 2 years, and then I just fell out. And now I feel guilty. The rabbis don't want people walking around feeling guilty. Deal with it. I changed my lifestyle. The circumstances are different. I understand life differently now. And had I understood life now the way I did when I made the commitment, I would have said, I'm going to go every Tuesday night, bli neder, as long as I can. And then when it ends, it ends.
Got it.
All right. So tomorrow night, when we say the Kal Nidre, when we stand and say the Kal Nidre, it has a lot of value and it should be thought about on a couple of different levels. I'm standing in front of the Beit Din, this Jewish court. I'm standing in front of the court. I'm standing in front of God, really, tomorrow night, and I'm asking for my exemption based on the fact that I didn't understand the circumstances as they would play out in this thing over a period of time. I also want to be looking at myself when I'm doing that and saying, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to take on a commitment, do the best you can for as long as you can. And when the circumstances are different, because you couldn't have imagined what the circumstances would mean on that commitment a week later or 3 years later, it's okay to say, I'm done with it. And it's not held on me or in me. And it's okay to be free of it. And that's very important. Good. One other quick thing. What about a neder? What about a commitment that I take on when I'm sleeping? There's a question in the halacha. There's a neder of a chalom. The neder, the promise or the commitment made in a dream. Does that have impact or not?
Yes.
Literally the conversation. Okay, great. Okay, Serena, you happen to be right that it doesn't, but there
Only
are
if you say
rabbis.
it.
Huh?
Right, only if you say it, right? Only if you say it out loud.
Right. Only if what if I said it in my dream? I don't know if I actually verbalized it or not. So the rabbis are actually back and forth on it. Some say that a neder is something, and some say that it isn't. And at the end of the day, we say that it isn't. Now, one other quick point on this. If you'll note in the last paragraph or so that we say in this hatara, in this invalidation of promises, we say that we're taking on from here and for the future, that any commitment that we take on, whether it's in the form of a ongoing practice, or I verbalize the commitment, or anything I take on, I'm telling you from now, rabbinical court and myself and God, that I am not making a commitment. We all say that. And the people who go to shul and say the hatara 4 or 5 times, by the time we get to Kippur, have said 4 or 5 times that any commitment I make from now and to the future, I am already annulling it. Now, if that's true, why am I doing the hatara every year? Again, the last paragraph I say, depending on the nusach, depending on the structure of your particular one, but pretty much the last paragraph I say is any commitment I take on from now into the future, mikan lahaba, from now into the future, I am telling you now that I'm saying, I'm giving you a general bli neder. I'm giving you an absolute, total disclaimer from the outset. Why, if I did that, do I have to come back and make the effort again?
Remind the person?
Huh?
Remind the person?
Remind
Remind the person?
to remind the other person?
No, yourself. Not you.
To remind me that I shouldn't be doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What do you think? What else do you think? To remind me that I shouldn't be doing? Good. Give me another thought. Sam, any ideas? Why do I have to go back and do it again if I did a generalized disclaimer? Chacham, you want to mention something here? Aaron? No. Okay.
Oh, hi, yeah, no, I don't have anything on this. It's a good
Okay.
question. I wondered
So-
it myself.
Yeah.
Ricky,
Yeah.
isn't it like all about like the fact that we're saying it, the time of year that we're saying it on Yom Kippur? It's to like get us in the mindset of we're asking Hashem to give us a good year, that we're going to be great, that we're going to be good. So we
Right.
want to really like reinforce it on Yom Kippur night that we mean bit like we're serious. And
Right, but I'm calling this rabbinic court, this heavenly court. It's a little bit challenging, this paragraph's a little bit challenging. But our rabbis say as follows. They say that if I made a general disclaimer, and then I went ahead at a future date and I made a specific commitment knowingly, I can't base the out on that general disclaimer that I made 9 months ago or last week. Even though it was a general disclaimer, and in fact, in word, it should be enough to couch anything I say going forward and to constrict it from being considered a commitment. We end up saying that the verbalizing or the actualizing of a commitment is so strong in terms of defining me and my destiny, my relationship to God, my relationship to myself, that even if I made that general disclaimer, if I knew after I made the general disclaimer and I still went ahead and committed to something, must be I really want to do it. And therefore, I gotta come and uproot it again. Good? Great. Thoughts, questions? So now we're all tooled up for tomorrow night on that, God willing.
Yeah, why are we allowed to even make the general disclaimer? It seems like it's removing us from the rest of our commitments forever.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think the general disclaimer is difficult to deal with. It's certainly difficult to deal with. I think it's probably in there, and I'm just giving a very, very, very not thoroughly considered opinion. It's probably in there for me to just say, you know what, don't go here again. Just don't go here. You're making a public proclamation that you're done with this commitment stuff. So I think it has more of an awareness import than it does a practical import, because we say on a practical level, I still have to come back around in a week from now or a year from now or whenever and uproot those things again. So I agree with you. On a very straightforward level, we wouldn't say that paragraph. We wouldn't say it. Good?
Why do we do like this and like tashlich?
Ah, beautiful. Fantastic. What is the difference between this and tashlich? What is tashlich? Tashlich, Julia, is when we throw our sins into the water, right? Right? When we throw away our sins into the water. Let's talk about that. It's past, but it's very important. Let's spend a few minutes on it. Sari, what is the difference between, first of all, what is the underlying message of tashlich, of taking our sins in a theoretic sense, lifting them out of us and tossing them deep into the sea? What are we saying? What are we saying?
Throwing it away, like no more. Let's be done with it. Let's clear it.
Fabulous, Julia. We're saying I'm done with it. I want to be clear of it. Now, did I throw anything into the ocean or into the baby pool or into the pool? What did I do? Did I actually throw anything? Huh?
I threw
Serene?
pieces of bread.
What?
I thought you were actually supposed to throw something. I threw pieces of bread to the. Were you not
Okay.
supposed to actually throw anything?
No. You can, but you don't have to. Great. You don't have to. But what did we do? What did we do, Erwin? Come on. What did we do? Did we actually throw anything to the depths of the sea?
No, but maybe it's like a cleansing process or something.
It's a cleansing process. Good. So what does it tell you? This is very important in Judaism. I'm happy you brought it up, Sari. Thank you. Very important in Judaism. Let me ask you a related question. When we eat the apple, when we dip the apple in the honey, right? Like we did, right? The evening before we threw away our sins, right? And we eat the lubia and the pomegranate, this, that, right? And we say that these multiple seeds should bring multiple blessing. And this sweet apple dipped in the sweeter honey should bring a sweet year. What are we doing there? Tie them together. Sari, they came from the same place. What are they? It's different than the Hatarah, but it's important to understand the distinction. What is it? What is the difference here? And what does it mean? It's exciting. It's an exciting concept. What do you say?
It's just, it's
Nikki,
using
come on.
it's symbolism. It's really more like symbolism.
Fabulous. Perfect. Symbolism in Judaism has great value. Symbolism in Western culture means that something is devoid of substance, it's devoid of a quantifiable X, and it's symbolic. Right, Erwin? You're very well read. When something is symbolic, what does it mean in Western culture? It don't mean anything. It has no practical import because it's only symbolic, right? That's what the term has come to mean in Western culture. I mean, it's devoid. Yeah.
No, the thing is like this, Ricky. So I never thought it that way, but if you're telling me like the night we ate the honey and the sweet year and all that, so maybe then the exercise should have been reversed. that we should have did the blow away the fish before, like we should have been, all right, we're clean now. Now let's have a sweet. How can we have a sweet year the next year, but the next day we're throwing away the fish? So we really didn't eradicate everything to have a clear shot.
All right, it's true. Let me talk about your point in a minute. Leaving the fish out of this for a minute. I'll talk about your point in a minute. The fact is that symbolism in Judaism is a very substantial thing. And when I do something for symbolic reasons, it's something that we believe has substance and is quantifiable. If I stand in front of the body of water and I say the 13 midot of God's forgiveness, and I symbolically remove from myself all of the junk that was in my life this past year, I should feel that I'm walking away lighter, because when I symbolically do something in Judaism, it means something. When I symbolically raise up the apple and dip it in the honey and say, may this bring me a year of good, that has a value in the overall scheme of things, in the reality, in shaping reality. It's not a symbol, it's an action. It impacts reality. It changes reality. So in Judaism, we don't have any symbols. We have things that are more action-oriented and differently action-oriented, but everything we do, even the symbolic things of eating an apple and pomegranates and like that, even that, we're impacting the mitziut, the reality, the cosmos. We're putting words out into the world, and those words that carry a good tone and a beautiful message and hopes for the future, they impact the beauty of the future and they change it. Good words bring good tidings. They're not nothing. And to your point earlier, Serene, you mentioned something about thoughts. Same thing with thoughts. Thoughts are things in Judaism. Thoughts are not nothing. Good thoughts bring good tidings, right? It's clear. So when we do something symbolic in Judaism, we are impacting reality. We're changing our destiny. We're moving the world to a different place. So there's no such thing as just symbolism. Good. So, Sari, the tashlich is symbolic. The hatara is halachic. In other words, the tashlich was a minhag, a custom. Throwing the sins was a custom that really came into play not very long ago. It's maybe several hundred years old, not much more than that. We can't pinpoint exactly when it started. Didn't start in the Sephardi communities. That seems to be clear. It started somewhere in Ashkenaz, and we embraced it. The Hatana, on the other hand, is built based on a halachic construct in order to remove a person from the things he obligated himself to. So they come in the same context because one is about bringing good and bringing good mazal, good luck and good fortune and light and positivity. And the other one is removing junk. So they end up within a few days of each other because we want to walk into, and this goes to Erwin's point, we want to walk into that judgment day, that ultimate day, Kippur. We want to walk into it light and free and flexible and excited. We don't want to walk in burdened. The big question is, well, have Kippur first and then Rosh Hashanah, right? But that would make no sense. Rosh Hashanah is the day that I proclaim God as my king, not only my father, that I commit my life to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then I look at my life and I say, before I get to Judgment Day, hey, I want to take a lot of stuff and I want to move it away from me. And I'm going to do it with symbols. I'm going to do it with with actions. I'm going to do it with a court. I'm going to use all the means possible to lighten myself up and put myself in a fabulous state of mind. So when I'm standing before God, I say, you know what? I've already made commitments to the positive. I've already moved away from the old stuff. That's the system. Now, that goes to this part, the final part, which is, I want to tell you a quick story. When my grandson, my oldest grandson, Richie and Jerry's son, Elliot, was bar mitzvahed in Israel a few years ago. So I was fortunate to be able to speak. And my message to my beautiful grandson was, be a ben Torah and then be a billionaire. But be a ben Torah first and then make money. And the continuation of the words was about the following. And I'm going to paraphrase it for our purposes. Judaism is not a spectator sport, and it's not passive. It's absolutely based on commitment. And one of the nice things about learning halakha, and I hope you'll enjoy this little bit of halakha that we're doing together tonight. We're going to do one area before we wrap, is a call to action. Judaism is a call to action. And people don't really get that. Most people are passive in their Judaism. Most people are living their life and doing mitzvot, but they're not aggressively building their Jewish knowledge the way they build their career knowledge or their college knowledge. They're not aggressively building their practices and their expertise the way they're building their career expertise, but they're missing it. Judaism that's the full-time job. Everything else is an add-on. So Judaism is about removing the junk, because I don't have time for that anymore. I just want to be clear road to build. But what ends up happening in some cases is I remove the junk and then I just hang out. Many people are just passive in their Judaism. One of the great things about learning halakha is you can't be passive anymore. You don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. But now we know the dinim, we know the laws between the hatara, behind the hatara. So now we're going to be more careful when we make a commitment. If we have a specific area that we need to be exempted from, we're going to call 3 people together and we're going to say, you know what, there's a specific area of commitment that I'm completely aware of, that I don't have to bundle with umpteen other things. In a general disclaimer, come sit 2 minutes and I want this to be removed from my life. But that type of action comes from a place of knowledge and a place of involvement, not from a place of passivity. Judaism is not a spectator sport and should not be passive. Good. I want to bring you a couple other, maybe 2 other things. One, in terms of halakha, Jewish law, when it comes to between man and man, right? When it comes to between man and man, we have some very interesting nuances to that law. One is that, let's say, generally speaking, if someone stole from somebody and he also punched him in the nose, right? He stole from somebody and he punched him in the nose. So what would we bring him to court for? The stealing or no, let me give a better example. He stole from somebody and he insulted him. What would we bring him to court for? We have the concept of kimle drabamine, which means we only deal with the more important issue, the more demanding issue. And therefore, if someone stole from somebody and insulted him, and he was brought before a court, even though insulting is also against Jewish law, you would bring the person on for his thievery, you would think. The extraordinary thing about Jewish law is that if you have something like theft or gezel, where someone stole from somebody, and they also insulted the person or hurt the person when they did this theft, even if the crook returns the stolen object, he's not off the hook until he clears the air with the guy who was stolen from. Again, classic case. If someone stole from someone and murdered that person, the person is brought to justice for murder, not for theft, because it makes more sense. That's the more capital issue. That's the greater issue. On the other hand, if someone steals from somebody and embarrasses them, unless he clears up the embarrassment, even though he gave back the object that he stole, he's not forgiven for stealing the object. Erwin, you with me? Huh? Does this make any sense to you?
Yeah, I mean,
Huh? Does it make sense?
it quasi makes sense. In other words, because you're sort of you're letting him off the hook, maybe. I don't know.
I'm not letting. The guy stole $1 million. Reuven stole $1 million from Shimon. Reuven wakes up and he insults him. He says something ugly to him, and he steals $1 million.
Right.
He goes and he gives him back the $1 million.
Right.
Does anybody care that he insulted the guy? Does the guy care? He got his $1 million.
I couldn't care less.
He couldn't care less, right? But
Right,
in Judaism,
right, but he still didn't eradicate the hurt. In other words, yeah, he gave him back the money, so the guy doesn't care. But according to say Torah, you know, he didn't apologize or whatever, you know. That's why I said it's sort of like
It's
a
as
give
if
and
he
take.
still stole the money.
honey?
It's as if he still stole the money. If he embarrassed
Yep,
me.
Kadosh Baruch Hu does not forgive him. God doesn't forgive him.
Oh, he
for the
doesn't.
theft. He's not forgiven for the theft unless he fixes the other.
Right,
How is
that's
that
what I'm
possible?
saying.
Right, but when you think of a normal halachic construct, the normal way that halacha is delineated, you would never say anything like this. Once the capital issue, the more primary issue, the more dramatic issue is solved, then the other stuff is gone. Next, over here, we raise up the level of ben adam lahaviro, between man and man, to a level of deoraita, biblical. We put them on the same level, and we say, even if the man returned $1 million, if
Right.
this guy is still insulted, he doesn't get credit for returning the money.
Wow.
That's the hidush here. That's the surprise. He doesn't get credit. These
It's a surprise, but it makes sense.
But insulting is also insulting is a crime.
It is. That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. Great, Sam. It is. It's a crime. It's not a crime. It's against halacha. Now, and our rabbis say an interesting thing. They say, if someone says something hurtful to somebody else, maybe he also transgressed on the biblical imperative of don't harbor hatred in your heart for another person. Lo tisnat achicha b'levavecha. Maybe he's harboring hate in his heart. Maybe when he was inconsiderate to another person, he actually violated the biblical mandate of Avtana Hakamocha. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Did the person intend to violate the biblical commandment of loving his neighbor? Of course he didn't intend to do that. But our rabbis go ahead and say, when someone did something hurtful to another person, they may very well have dragged that biblical commitment on over, and now you have a biblical commitment tied to this man-to-man issue, and look where you are, mister. Look where you are. And that's a gigantic reach for the rabbis to do. What do you mean? If Reuven insulted Shimon, if Reuben insulted Simeon, does that mean that he hates him in his heart? Not necessarily. Does that mean that he doesn't keep love my neighbor as I love myself? No, not necessarily. But wait a second. From the halachic point of view, it means just that. And what we're doing here is we're putting in this fantastic halachic impetus focused on the relationship between people that says that even if someone did something seemingly without thought, like insulting another person, he probably, in quotation marks, violated a biblical commandment, and we have a big problem with that. And therefore, the rabbis say, and we'll go another 5 minutes, therefore the rabbis say, go see the guy 3 times, hand in hand. And if he doesn't accept it, go before 10 men and explain to them what happened. And that's the only way you're absolved from this thing. Shocking that the Jewish law would go to this extent. People insult people all the time, unfortunately. People are callous to people all the time. So we raise the bar very high. Another question that comes up in this context, that's a halachic question that, again, as you begin to immerse more in halakha, in my opinion, makes things very exciting. What if the person said, I forgive you to the other guy, to the guy who hurt him, but he doesn't really feel that way in his heart? Chacham, you want to weigh in on this? If he says that he forgave him, but he doesn't feel that way in his heart, we want to say, Devarim shebelev devarim hen, or not in this case? What would you say?
It's a hard question. I've been grappling with that for many years. It's a hard question.
Fantastic.
I really can't. Yeah.
I love you, Aaron. I love you. I really do.
Ricky.
I really do. That's such a smart and honest answer. It's such a smart and honest answer. The rabbis deal with this question, and they struggle with it, as Rabbi Aaron does. They struggle with it because, on the one hand, what I feel in my heart is real, right? We said you can't hate a person in your heart. That's a biblical prohibition. On the other hand, the person verbalized his forgiveness to the guy. So what do you want to do? You want to say he verbalized his forgiveness, but that was just expeditious, doesn't really mean anything. So because in his heart, he's still hurt or he's still angry. Or you want to say, once he verbalized it, it's considered okay. And I went back and forth on it like the rabbi did. And the bottom line opinion that I saw, that I believe is appropriate in this case, not in all cases that reference something that's going on in a person's heart, is that in this case, we don't consider what's going on in his heart. If the person said, I forgive you, even if in his heart he doesn't feel completely that way, the person who insulted the guy or whatever it is should feel forgiven at that point. Because in this case, we're going to say that devarim shebelev and non-devarim. We're not going to consider them once the person verbalized something. So if Reuven went over to Shimon and asked him to forgive him, he went once, he went twice, whatever it might be, and he said, you're forgiven, even if he didn't fully feel it in his heart. In this case, we're going to say he's forgiven. What if someone hurt a child? We say that a child, according to halakha, is not bar da'at. Someone who's younger than, let's say, 13 for a boy and 12 for a girl, doesn't have the intellectual capacity to make decisions. If someone hurt a child and goes over and asks that child's forgiveness, is he forgiven? Erwin?
The child?
The child was the one who was hurt. And the adult goes over and asks the child for forgiveness. He's 12 years old.
He's not adulthood yet, in other words.
He's not in adulthood, so he doesn't have the capacity to forgive. So the person who hurt him has to wait a year or 2 or 5
and go back to
back when he's an adult, when he has the intellectual state of mind, and only at that point can he be forgiven.
I have a story, Ricky. They have a story of one of the Gdolei Hador. I forgot who it is, the Chazon Ish, that he would never stop learning Torah for anything. And one day he told his gabbai, take me to the bar mitzvah of this boy. It's his bar mitzvah. And he says, what's going on? You don't stop, even for the greatest rabbis, you don't stop learning Torah. He says, I insulted him when he was under bar mitzvah, and he didn't, like you're saying, he didn't have the ability to forgive me then because he wasn't bar mitzvah. So now I want to make sure I go to him and ask him. There's no obviously you can't hurt people under bar mitzvah even though they don't have that, but they're still humans and they still feel. So
Right.
all the laws apply. But as far as being able to give mechila, they don't have that, like you're saying.
That's right. They don't have the intellectual capacity to do it. Fabulous.
Oh, that's incredible.
Amazing. Now, one more point, and then we'll just do a quick wrap up. What if the guy who was the nasty guy passed away? The nasty guy, he was hurtful to somebody, and then he passed away. Our rabbis say a fascinating thing. He was hurtful to somebody, and then he passed away. In other words, he never got to ask the guy's forgiveness, and the guy didn't forgive him. So
Who, the guy who whacked the guy out, or the guy who got hit?
The guy who whacked the guy out passed away.
Good,
right?
got it.
The perpetrator, right? The perpetrator is out, right?
Now he's checked out. It's too late. The game's over.
Right. So what happens now? So rabbis say a remarkable thing. They say that the person who passed away will begin to get punished for what he did to the other person.
Wow.
And will continue, that punishment will continue until the other person forgives him. So if Reuven hurt Shimon, and then Reuven passes away. So the rabbis are making a huge hidush. They're teaching us something, a huge, remarkable new insight, that even death doesn't expunge from a person the sins that he did against somebody else. Whereas typically death is the greatest atoner, right?
Right.
Death is the greatest atoner, right? It pretty much wipes out everything,
Right.
Except for something like this. If someone hurt somebody and then passed away,
right?
If the person who was hurt, who's still alive, doesn't forgive them, then they're going to be subjected to the punishment of that action until the person stands up and says, you know what, that guy, he hurt me 3 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is, I forgive him. At that point, the issue ends.
But Ricky, is it, I don't know if it's related, when I have to ask, is there a concept that before someone passes away, that they could do a blanket,
Yes, and we do it.
So does that expunge that he hurt the guy? No?
That's the point.
If he says, like, Hashem, before I check out, I'm sorry for everything. No?
So the fascinating
So what's
thing
the shuva? What's the teshuvah if he doesn't blow out everything that he ever did?
He blows out everything he ever did between him and God, but not what he did between him and another person.
Ah, okay, got it.
Now, on that note, if the person who was hurt is not alive anymore, then you go to his grave and you apologize to him there. Some people say you apologize in front of other people. Some people say you apologize to his children. It's remarkable how the rabbis elevate the between man and man to the level where in certain cases, like to your example, Erwin, where someone passes away, the issues between man and God, right? Assuming the person said a bidui, whatever, or let's say they didn't. Not most of the cases, the death will atone for those sins, but it won't atone for what happened between him and another human being.
Okay.
That's what's remarkable. So where do we go with all this? We go with we had a little bit of a couple of rounds of halacha, which I hope you enjoyed. I think they're exciting and enjoyable. And the beauty about halacha is we don't have to be moralistic. We don't have to be Western in our perspectives about what's ethically good and ethically right and ethically wrong. We don't have to go anywhere because we're in a much more elevated infrastructure, which mandates what's right and wrong. And it's often surprising, and it's intellectually very stimulating and exciting. Okay, I wanted to mention one other point here. Let me see. Oh, one other point, yeah. Let's say someone insulted someone behind their back and the person doesn't know. The person doesn't know, and the person may never find out. Now what? Now what? Now, if someone said something ugly to a third person, he has to go to that third person and clear that up. But what if it never got to the guy it was said about? So now there's a very interesting halacha here, and I think an important one that sheds light on how the rabbis, based on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's direction, look at people. If going to the person who is spoken about and detailing what was said will hurt him or embarrass him or create friction, don't do it. Don't do it. If even going to him and telling him is going to create a problem, don't do it. Because you went to the guy you spoke to and you told him you were sorry for it and to never speak it, and it wasn't true, or it came from anger or whatever it was. So to go to the guy and tell him, I said these 3 nasty things about you, would only create pain and embarrassment, and it's counterintuitive and it's against halakha. So you can either do nothing, assuming this didn't go out and he won't hear about it. You go to the people you spoke about it and you tell them you did something wrong and you want it to end and like it never happened, and you ask them to please, like that. So either you don't go to the guy at all, because going to him will create pain, or you go to him and you say, you know what, I'm sorry, but I stumbled. I said something silly. I shouldn't have said it. I didn't mean it. If you hear anything, just forget about it because I retracted it. Now, if doing that will cause a problem, then you don't do it. The only way you do it is if you anticipate that not doing it will create a bigger problem. Good? Good. Last point. I think we have to make choices. I think we have to decide what's going to drive our lives. You know, is it Jewish law, or is it everything else with a little bit of Judaism sprinkled in? I think for a lot of people, not the people on this call, but a lot of people, it's life with some Judaism sprinkled in. What would be a great perspective change for the new year would be, it's Judaism, which essentially encompasses all of life, which is going to take up the overwhelming majority of my focus and a good portion of time in my day, with career and hobbies and all of that sprinkled in.
Right.
So rather than career and hobbies and friends and all those good things, and they're all good things, being my primary driver is my relationship with God, my knowledge of Torah, my growing, my becoming more, and then everything else is fit into that. And that's a huge paradigm shift. And that's what I know for me, for myself, I have the specific areas that I want to improve on and change and fix, and things I want to come clean with over the next few days.
Right.
But my biggest thing is, you know, I really love Judaism intensely. I love Torah intensely. And I just want it to be more consuming, not less. I want it to be more of the glasses through which I see everything, and not less. And you know why? At the end of the day, for me personally, and I believe it's true for most people, it's a happier life.
Right.
It's truly a happier life. And a life of Torah knowledge is fun and exciting. I'm going to throw you one more quick thing, and I'm not going to give you the answer. Everybody's tired and asleep, but I'm going to throw you one. Sam may remember, we talked about it over the holiday. Quick question. Maybe I will give you the answer, one extra minute. Quick question, another just fun halakha thing. We did a few areas of halakha. If somebody stole a shofar, listen carefully, everybody, who's ever still here. Someone stole a shofar, right? Reuven stole the shofar from Shimon. Reuven then went ahead and blew the shofar, Mickey. He blew the shofar for 100 people. Did they fulfill the obligation hearing it from a stolen shofar? Why yes and why not? One last quick halachic tussle. That's fun. What do you say?
I
I
say
think
yes,
yes.
because
Why
they didn't
yes?
know.
Why, Julia? Why yes?
Because they were under false pretenses. They didn't know the shofar was stolen.
Beautiful. They didn't know the shofar is stolen. And what did they do before they heard the blowing of the shofar? What they did is they made a bracha, they made a blessing with God's name. So maybe we're going to say that, as Julia is saying, they made a blessing with God's name, and we don't want to call that blessing a blessing for nothing, saying God's name in vain. And therefore, we're going to say that even though the shofar was stolen, and you typically can't do a mitzvah based on an Averah, you can't build a mitzvah on top of a sin. You cannot build a mitzvah on top of the sin. In this case, because you have a counterbalancing issue, which is somebody said God's name, or many people said it, because you have a counterbalancing issue, you balance them out. Beautiful point. Give me one more point and we're done. Why else would we say that the blowing is considered good or not good?
Aren't you allowed to do an Aveirah in order to do a mitzvah?
Beautiful, sweet.
Or
You're
not?
absolutely, and that's what we just said. You cannot. You cannot.
Okay.
Okay. What would be an example in your mind of being able to do that, by the way? You have a specific case? Maybe there's an exceptional case that I'm not thinking of.
No, I just remember learning about with Yael that she took the Sisra in,
That's
and but like so in order to save the Jewish people. So
That's right. That's right. We actually, you may have learned that with somebody else, but we also learned that together.
Right.
And the rabbis are back and forth on that. They're actually back and forth on that. Some of the
Right.
rabbis say that what she did in seducing, was not right. And the other rabbis say that there was a greater good here, and there was no female dweller of tents on the level like she, and what she did was right. But there's a good amount of back and forth on that.
Right.
I'll just tell you the quick one here because it's fun and it's interesting to know that the mitzvah in the shofar, what has to be fulfilled is to hear the sound. So the question is, was the sound proper or not? If the sound was proper, that's separated from the shofar. The shofar is the shofar. The sound is the sound. If the sound was properly blown,
Right.
then you fulfilled the mitzvah by hearing the proper sound. On the other hand, if someone stole someone's lulav, right?
Right.
On the holiday, let's call it the first day of the holiday, just to keep it more constrained. If someone stole someone's lulav on the first day of the holiday, the only way you do the mitzvah is with the lulav, or even on any day of the holiday, forget that. On any day of the holiday, because you're doing the mitzvah with the lulav itself and not an extension of the lulav, that person would not have fulfilled the mitzvah because the lulav is stolen and the mitzvah is, the action is on the lulav itself. In this case, the shofar is stolen, but the mitzvah is on the sound, and therefore the person is okay.
The person blowing is okay as
The
well?
person, no, very good, Sam. The person hearing is okay.
Right.
Person hearing is okay.
So Rick, you're saying that if the sounds are off base, then the value is not there.
That's right. That's right. And so
Also,
we also,
I just want to tell you just a cute story. When I was about 10, 11 years old, we had Hebrew school in those days. So from 3 to 6, I had Rabbi Heck was my teacher from 3 to 4:45, and 4:45 to 6 was Rabbi El Nadav, the Hazan. Those are my two teachers with about
the
8.
Memory. What a
Right.
good memory.
Right.
Yeah.
So one day when we had before Kippur, he was awesome. I mean, Rabbi El Nadav was like the
Yes,
Sinatra of the Jewish world, or whatever you want to
Right.
call it.
that's right.
So he had us all blow the shofar. So I was trying to blow it. I was about 10, 11 years old. We were all trying to blow it. So he took a whack. He was gonna whack me, right, with love, because he loved us. And then he looked at me and I was trying to blow it, and he said, "Dayan, are you a boy or are you a man?"
Ah, nice. And then what'd you do? You ran out of the room
I blew
crying?
my brains out. I
love it.
But
I
I want to
love it.
ask you a question. Before, when you said about the Judaism, if someone, say, what I call cherry picks the Torah, does Hashem look at that as you're growing, or you're picking and choosing?
So what am I doing? Am I growing or am I picking and choosing? You tell me. Hi, Carol. Are you growing or you're picking and choosing? You tell me. What is
Hi,
the
Ricky.
person's, thank you for joining. Good to see you. Good to have you. What's the person's intention? Is it to grow or is it to pick and choose? What's the game?
Probably to pick and choose, yeah.
Pick
But
and
don't,
choose
but
is
the
not-
credit, right, so the
No, of
growth
course
is,
the person, the person gets credit for what he's
Right,
doing, of course,
right,
without question. But really, I think it's about, what club am I in? What is my
Right.
club?
Right.
I try to tell my grandson, it's a simple story. We all deal with this on much more complex levels in our own lives and the lives of our children. I tried to tell my grandson, make being a Ben Torah, a person immersed in Torah, make that your overwhelming focus in life,
Right.
and make money also. Make money also. Everybody should make money and make a lot of money and enjoy it.
right,
And go to beautiful places and then buy
Right.
beautiful things, and all that is
Right.
also part.
Amen to that.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's really the opposite of Fiddler on the Roof, because the guy said if he's loaded, he's gonna become so Jewish. You're
Yeah.
saying become so Jewish and then get loaded.
That's what I'm saying. Right. That's
Right.
right.
No, it's nice. I like your twist, yeah.
All right. And
All
whatever
right.
you do in the interim, as long as it's sincere, it's good. Just let it be sincere. But I think for us, as people who have been learning together for the most part for some time, I think the questions can be more serious and rigorous on the holiday. And I think it's really a question of what is my primary goal at this stage of my life, and where are my primary energies, and really what club am I in? I know I struggle with that question a lot, because I'm in the learning world, I'm in the business world. It would have been much easier to be overwhelmingly in one or the other, but to be a lot in both is very, very hard, very, very hard. But what I find over time is the one that makes me happy. I enjoy business, and I think everybody should have a career expression, as many of us have spoken about. But what really makes me happy is my immersion in Torah. And so I think, let's pray in English, the prayers we don't understand tomorrow night and Thursday. Let's go slow, even if we have to skip certain parts, so that the prayers become personal and meaningful. Let's scream, let's shout, let's do whatever we want to do in terms of this unique opportunity to communicate with God. Let's not let it be rote. Let's not let it be, without understanding. And let's, think about really, when I wake up in the beginning of my day, what am I pining for, And I think it's, I hope it's to be just effusive with Torah and immersed in it and surrounded by it and celebrating it and just having such a fullness of it. I think that's really the hope and the intent. Good.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thanks, Greg.
So what do you think? Mickey had suggested, and it was a great suggestion a few weeks back, that we try to do the Thursdays. Last Thursday was difficult because we were ending the fast. I don't know. Is next Thursday Chol Hamoed going to be any easier? It comes right after. I don't know. We have women on the class who have a ton going on the holiday, or is it just? Should we just leave it till after the holiday? Whatever you guys think is good.
Well, the holidays is Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, no?
Yeah. So we're thinking maybe do Thursday, do Thursday, which, it's really,
I'm
Saturday.
okay with it. I'm okay with it. Just circulate it around and whatever you
Okay.
want to do, it's fine.
Okay, what about the women on the call? Is it hard for you?
No, I think
like
Thursday night's
Thursday.
fine. That's
Yeah.
good, but not only for the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, only for the next 2 weeks,
Oh,
right? Then we switch
yeah.
it back.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Right. All right. Teskulu Shanim
Okay,
Rabot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Easy
Thank you.
fast, everybody.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thanks,
Easy
Ricky.
fast,
Have a good
everyone.
fast, everyone. Thank you
best.
so
Thanks a
much.
lot.
I told
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Ricky.
Carol, take care. Chacham, take care. Carol, take
Bye-bye.
care. Very best.
So long, Rick.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays.
Ricky. Bye, everyone.
Bye.